What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors sits down for what should have been a routine interview and instead finds himself under fire from a host who seems determined to make headlines at any cost? Today, we're diving into the moment Colin FTH, known for his calm demeanor and gentlemanly reputation, hit his breaking point on live television. This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a full-on masterclass in how not to treat your guests, and the explosive fallout will make you question everything you thought you knew about daytime TV. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds here. The tension starts from the very first question and escalates into something no one expected. Colin FTH walked onto the View set that Tuesday morning, ready to discuss his newest film, a period drama generating major awards buzz. His promotional tour had been smooth. Questions about his craft, his preparation, and the historical significance of the story. He settled into his chair with his usual quiet confidence, adjusting his jacket and offering that subtle, familiar smile to the audience. But Joy Behar had different plans. "So, Colin," Joy began, leaning forward with a predatory glint. "Before we talk about your little movie, I need to ask you something that's been bothering me. You British actors come here, take roles from Americans, make millions, and then go home and criticize our country. Don't you think that's a bit hypocritical?" The studio went silent. This was not the planned opener, and everyone felt it. Colin's polite smile shifted. Barely, but enough to show he was caught off guard. "I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the premise of your question," he replied, controlled but edged. "I've never criticized America as a whole, and I don't view my work as taking anything from anyone. Acting is a collaborative art form that transcends borders." Joy waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, please, spare me the diplomatic speech. You've been quoted plenty of times criticizing American politics and culture. You take our money, and then you lecture us. Isn't that just modern colonialism?" The other hosts exchanged uneasy looks. No one expected this. Not remotely. Colin straightened, jaw tightening. "I think you're conflating different things. Having opinions on political policies, something anyone in the world has a right to, is not the same as attacking a culture or a people. And suggesting that my work here is some form of colonialism is not only inaccurate, but frankly, insulting." "Insulting?" Joy shot back, her voice rising. "What's insulting is coming into someone's house, eating their food, and then complaining about the cooking. You've made millions in Hollywood, Colin. Millions! And then you run back to London and talk about how awful we are." "I have never said anything of the sort," Colin replied, still controlled but with unmistakable steel. "I've been nothing but grateful for the opportunities I've had here. If you're going to make accusations like that, I'd appreciate specific examples instead of vague mischaracterizations." The camera zoomed in as his composure started to crack. His hands, usually relaxed, now gripped the arms of his chair. "Oh, you want specifics?" Joy smirked. "How about that interview with The Guardian where you called American political discourse primitive? Or when you said our healthcare system was morally bankrupt? Ring any bells?" Colin flushed slightly, but kept his voice steady. "Context matters. Those comments were answers to specific questions about specific policies, not sweeping judgments about American people. And I stand by them. Critiquing healthcare policy is not an attack on America." "See? There you go again," Joy snapped. "Even when you're called out, you double down." She mocked his accent. "I stand by those observations. How generous of you to stand by your insults." The studio audience was silent, watching the meltdown unfold. The other hosts looked trapped, but Joy was thriving, feeding off the conflict. "They weren't insults," Colin said quietly, dangerously quiet. "They were observations from someone who cares deeply about social justice and human welfare. If you want to twist compassion into an attack, that says more about you than me." Joy's eyes lit up. She'd found her opening. "Compassion?" She laughed, a sharp, cutting sound that echoed through the studio. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Compassion. Colin's hand slowly unclenched from the arms of his chair. For a moment, the entire studio seemed to hold its breath. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, lower, colder, each word slicing through the silence like a blade. "Playing dress-up?" Colin repeated, each syllable deliberate. "Is that how you view the craft I've dedicated my entire adult life to? The craft that lets me bring stories to life. Stories that matter. Stories that explore the human condition. Stories that actually contribute something meaningful to the world." Joy sensed she might have stepped over a line, but pushed forward anyway. "Oh, spare me the noble artist routine, Colin. At the end of the day, you're paid to pretend. You're not curing cancer." "And what exactly do you do?" Colin shot back, his voice rising, the edges of his restraint fraying. "You sit behind this desk every day tearing people down for entertainment. You invite guests under the guise of conversation and then ambush them with personal attacks and inflammatory accusations. Tell me, Joy, what is your contribution to society?" The other hosts froze, visibly unsure how to intervene. Cameras kept rolling, capturing every uncomfortable second. Joy's face twisted, her own cool slipping. "My contribution?" she snapped. "I hold people accountable. I ask the tough questions others are too afraid to ask. I don't let celebrities stroll in here and get free publicity without being challenged." "Challenged?" Colin let out a humorless laugh. "Is that what this is? Because it feels more like a coordinated character assassination. You've taken comments out of context, assigned motives I don't have, and now you're dismissing my entire profession as if it's beneath your lofty idea of journalism." "Don't lecture me about journalism," Joy barked. "I've been doing this longer than you've been making movies." "Then act like it." Colin's voice cracked like glass. "Real journalists ask questions to generate understanding, not to build false narratives and attack their guests for refusing to feed them. What you're doing isn't journalism, it's performance art, and frankly, it's not even good performance art." The audience was silent, transfixed. Joy's face reddened, her voice rising to match the tension. "How dare you come on my show and tell me how to do my job? You're a guest here, Colin, a guest. Show some respect." "Respect?" Colin stood towering over the desk. "You want to talk about respect? You invited me to discuss my work, and you've spent 10 straight minutes attacking my character, my integrity, and my profession. You've shown me no respect from the moment I sat down. Don't you dare lecture me about respect now." One of the co-hosts attempted to intervene. "Maybe we should take a commercial break." "No." Joy cut her off, eyes locked on Colin. "We're not taking a break. Mr. FTH here clearly has something he wants to say. Please, Colin, go on. Tell us all how unfairly you've been treated." Colin stared at her, silent for a long, charged moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but lethal. "You know what, Joy? You're right. I do have something to get off my chest. I've been doing interviews for over 20 years, and in all that time, I have never encountered someone so determined to manufacture conflict out of thin air. You didn't invite me for an interview. You invited me to be your punching bag." "That's ridiculous," Joy protested. But the conviction was gone. "Is it?" Colin leaned forward, hands braced on the desk. "Tell me this. Did you even watch my film before today? Did you research my quotes in context? Did you prepare a single question about the work I'm here to promote? Or did you decide that attacking a guest would make better television than having a genuine conversation?" Joy opened her mouth, but Colin wasn't done. "Because here's what I think happened," he continued, voice gaining power. You decided, before I walked in, that you were going to create a moment. You were going to be the tough host who took down the pretentious British actor. You built a narrative in your head about who I am. And you didn't let little things like facts or fairness get in your way. You're being paranoid, Joy said, though her voice shook now. Am I? Colin's laugh was cold. Then explain why every question you've asked has been crafted to put me on the defensive. Explain why you've twisted policy critiques into attacks on the American people. Explain why you reduce my entire career to playing dress-up while expecting me to sit here and smile as you tear me apart. The cameras caught every second, the beads of sweat forming on Joy's forehead, the slight tremble in her hands as she shuffled her notes. The total silence from the other hosts, who clearly wanted no part of what was unfolding. I'm doing my job, Joy said weakly. No, Colin replied, firm and unshakable. You're hiding behind your job. There's a difference between holding someone accountable and creating a hostile environment for your own entertainment. And the fact that you can't see that difference is exactly the problem. Joy's composure was gone now. You don't get to come on my show and attack me, Colin. This is my house. Then maybe you should learn how to treat your guests with basic human decency in your house, Colin fired back. Because what you've done here today isn't journalism. It isn't entertainment. And it definitely isn't professional. It's cruel. It's small. And frankly, it's beneath you. The words landed like blows, and Joy's expression flickered through shock and fury. How dare you? Joy's voice trembled, her TV persona completely shattered. How dare you sit there and psychoanalyze me like you know anything about what I do or why I do it? You think because you've played a few kings and prime ministers on screen, you're some kind of expert on real life? Colin stayed standing, posture rigid but controlled. I don't claim to be an expert on anything except my own experience, which today includes being systematically attacked by someone who clearly had no intention of having an honest conversation from the moment I walked through that door. Attacked? Joy's voice shot upward, high enough to make several crew members flinch. You think this is an attack? I asked you legitimate questions about your public statements, and you can't handle being challenged, so now you're throwing a tantrum like a spoiled child. Legitimate questions? Colin's restraint finally snapped. Joy, you opened this interview by accusing me of cultural colonialism. You implied my entire career is theft from American actors. You mocked my accent, dismissed my profession, and then had the audacity to call it journalism. If that's your idea of legitimate questioning, then I genuinely feel sorry for every guest who's ever sat in this chair. The other hosts exchanged panicked glances. The situation was clearly spiraling. Maybe we should all just take a step back, one of them began. No. Joy cut her off, eyes blazing. I want to hear what Mr. High and Mighty has to say. Please, Colin, continue telling us all how terrible I am at my job. I'm sure the audience is fascinated by your expert analysis. Colin stared at her for a long, heavy moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice. You know what, Joy? You're right. Let me tell the audience exactly what I think about how you do your job, because they deserve to know the kind of person they're watching every day. The studio fell into complete, suffocating silence. Even the camera operators seemed to be holding their breath. I think, Colin began, each word measured, that you've built a career on being cruel. You've convinced yourself that cruelty is honesty, and that attacking people is the same as holding them accountable. You hide behind the banner of journalism to justify behavior that would be unacceptable in any other profession. Joy opened her mouth, but no sound came out. And I think, Colin continued, gaining momentum, that you've forgotten the people who come on this show are human beings, with feelings, with dignity, with the right to be treated with basic respect. Instead, you treat them like targets in some twisted game, where the goal is to see how much damage you can inflict before they push back. "You're out of line," Joy managed to stammer, but her fire was gone. "Am I?" Colin's voice rose. "Because from where I'm standing, everything I've said is true. You've spent the last 15 minutes proving every single point. You've shown this audience exactly who you are, Joy, and it's not someone who deserves the platform you've been given." The cameras captured every detail, Joy's face shifting through embarrassment, rage, and something close to fear. The other hosts looked helpless, unsure what to do as everything unraveled. "I've been doing this show for years," Joy said weakly, as if longevity justified everything. "And that makes it worse," Colin shot back. "You've had years to learn how to treat people with dignity, and you chose not to. You've had years to understand the responsibility that comes with a platform like this, and you squandered it on cheap shots and manufactured controversy." Joy was visibly shaking now. Whether from anger or humiliation was impossible to tell. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped. "You don't know the pressures of live television, the demands of creating compelling content every single day." "Compelling content?" Colin let out a cold, humorless laugh. "Is that what you call this, Joy? Because what you've created here today isn't compelling. It's embarrassing. For you, for this show, and for everyone watching." One of the other hosts finally tried to intervene. "Colin, maybe we should—" "No." Colin turned to her, calm but unwavering. "I understand what you're trying to do, but this conversation needs to reach its natural conclusion. Because what's happening here isn't about one bad interview. It's about the culture of daytime TV. The culture of manufactured outrage. The culture of treating guests like props in some elaborate performance instead of as human beings." He looked back at Joy, who had sunk into her seat, looking much smaller than when the interview began. "You want to know what real journalism looks like, Joy?" he continued. "Real journalism takes preparation, research. Good faith questions meant to draw out meaningful insight. Real journalism means respecting your guests even when you disagree with them. It means challenging your own assumptions, not using your platform to reinforce your prejudices." Joy tried one last time to regain ground. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this from some actor who thinks he's above everyone else." "You're right," Colin said calmly. "You don't have to. But if you walk away, if you shut this down instead of engaging with the valid criticisms I'm raising, you'll prove every point I've made about your character and professionalism." The challenge hung in the air like a dare. Joy looked around the studio. Her co-hosts, the crew, the cameras, clearly realizing she was trapped. Walking away would look like guilt. Staying meant enduring Colin's dismantling of her entire approach to hosting. "I'm not going anywhere," she muttered, though the conviction was gone. "Good." Colin settled back into his chair, controlled and devastatingly calm. "Then let's have the conversation you should have started with. Let's talk about my film. The historical period, the themes, the message. Let's give your audience the substantive discussion they deserve instead of the theatrics you seem to prefer." Joy stared at him, clearly lost. The woman who began the interview with aggressive certainty now looked like someone searching for an escape route she didn't have. "My film," Colin prompted gently. It's about the complexity of moral choices in times of crisis," Colin said smoothly. "About ordinary people forced into extraordinary circumstances and deciding what they're willing to sacrifice for their principles. It's about the cost of integrity in a world that rewards compromise. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The character I play," he continued, "is a man who refuses to back down when institutions pressure him to abandon what he knows is right. He's willing to pay the cost of standing by his beliefs, even when it would be easier to go along with the system. Another heavy silence filled the studio. Joy's mouth opened and closed a few times before she managed to whisper, "It sounds very interesting." "It is," Colin replied. "I hope people will see it and decide for themselves how relevant it is to our current moment." The interview limped along with a few forced questions about his preparation and the film's historical context, but everyone knew the real story had already unfolded. When the show cut to commercial, Colin stood, straightened his jacket, and walked off the set without a word. Joy remained seated, staring at her notes, her expression shattered.